Hello, dear friends, and welcome back to our space, a place where we explore how to live our golden years with vitality, joy, and importantly, with awareness. Have you ever paused, perhaps while stirring a pot of your favorite soup, or as you're carefully slicing vegetables for a nourishing meal, and truly considered the tools you're using? We often focus so much on the quality of our ingredients, fresh produce, lean proteins, and rightly so. But what if I told you that some of the most common items in our kitchens, and I mean items we use every single day, could be silently introducing unwelcome guests into our carefully prepared meals? Today, we're going to talk about something that's often invisible, yet increasingly a topic of concern: microplastics, and specifically how they might be finding their way into our food, particularly for us seniors, through some of our most trusted cooking utensils. It's not a topic meant to cause alarm, but rather to empower us with knowledge. Because when we know better, we can do better, can't we? So grab a comforting cup of tea, settle in, and let's gently explore this together. We're going to uncover not just the potential issues, but also, and more importantly, the simple, actionable steps we can take to protect our health and continue to enjoy the pleasure of home-cooked meals with peace of mind. Are you ready? Let's begin. The invisible crisis on the dining table quietly arrives. You know, for generations, the kitchen has been the heart of the home. It's where nourishing meals are made, where family recipes are passed down, and where so much love is shared. We trust our kitchens, we trust our tools. But in our modern world, a new, almost invisible challenge has emerged, one that our parents and grandparents never had to contend with in quite the same way. I'm talking about the pervasive presence of plastics. They are everywhere, in packaging, in storage containers, and yes, in many of our cooking utensils. Now, plastics themselves, in their solid form, might seem harmless enough. But the issue arises when these plastics start to break down. Through heat, through wear and tear, through daily use, they can shed tiny particles so small they are often invisible to the naked eye. These are what scientists call microplastics, and because they are so small, they can easily become incorporated into the very food we are preparing with such care. For us seniors, this can be a particular concern. Our bodies have already journeyed through many decades, and our systems might be more sensitive or less resilient than they once were. We might be managing other health conditions, and the last thing we need is an additional hidden burden on our well-being. It's like an uninvited guest at our dinner table, one that doesn't announce itself but could still cause trouble. This isn't about fear, my friends. It's about awareness. It's about understanding that this invisible crisis, as some are calling it, is something we need to acknowledge so we can navigate it wisely. Think about it. How often do you use a plastic utensil to stir a hot pan or cut food on a plastic board? These everyday actions, repeated over years, could be contributing factors. But don't worry, because later on, we'll discuss exactly how to make small changes for a big impact. Which kitchen utensils are sources of microplastics? So if these microplastics are potentially problematic, where exactly are they coming from in our kitchens? It's often from items we use without a second thought. Let's look at 5 common culprits that might be releasing these tiny particles into our meals. And as I go through these, perhaps you can mentally tick off if you have them in your kitchen and think about how often you use them. First on our list, and perhaps one of the most common, is the non-stick pan. Oh, how we love them for their convenience. Eggs slide right off, cleanup is a breeze. Many of us have relied on them for years. But here's the thing, that non-stick coating, often made from a type of plastic polymer like PTFE, you might know it by the brand name Teflon, can degrade over time, especially when scratched or overheated. Have you ever noticed your non-stick pan starting to flake or seen tiny black specks? Those aren't seasoning, dear friends. Those could very well be particles of the coating. When you cook, especially at high temperatures, or if you use metal utensils that scratch the surface, these particles can break off and mix directly into your food. I remember my own mother. She had a favorite non-stick frying pan she used for everything, and it was visibly scratched. At the time, we didn't know any better, but now we do. Second, let's talk about plastic spatulas, spoons, and ladles. These are so common, aren't they? Often colorful, lightweight, and inexpensive, we use them to stir sauces, flip pancakes, serve stews. But think about what happens when a plastic spatula meets a hot pan. The edges can melt ever so slightly. Or over time, with repeated use and washing, the plastic can become brittle and tiny fragments can chip off. I once saw a friend stirring a very hot tomato sauce with a plastic spoon, and I could literally see the tip of the spoon looking a bit frayed and almost fuzzy. That's plastic degradation in action, and those particles have nowhere to go but into the sauce. It's especially concerning with acidic foods, like that tomato sauce, or when scraping the bottom of a hot pan. Third on our list is the humble plastic cutting board. Almost every kitchen has one or several. They're marketed as hygienic and easy to clean, but what happens every time you chop vegetables or meat on a plastic cutting board? Your knife creates tiny grooves and cuts in the surface, and with each slice, microscopic plastic particles can be shaved off and mix with your food. Over years of use, a plastic cutting board can become a veritable landscape of knife scores. Researchers have actually studied this and found that millions of microplastic particles can be released from a plastic cutting board during a single session of chopping, especially if the board is old or heavily used. Imagine that, over years. I recall seeing an old white plastic cutting board in a relative's kitchen that was so deeply scored it looked almost like a miniature ploughed field. All those missing bits? They likely ended up in meals. Fourth, and this one might surprise some of you, is low-quality stainless steel pots and pans. Now, stainless steel itself is generally a very safe material for cooking, but the key here is low quality. Cheaper stainless steel can sometimes contain impurities, or the surface might not be as stable. More importantly, some lower-grade stainless steel cookware might be manufactured with other materials mixed in, or they might have components like handles or lid knobs made of plastic that can degrade with heat and time. Sometimes, even the polishing process or the finish on very cheap stainless steel can be less stable and might leach metals or other particles, although this is less about plastics and more about overall cookware quality. However, if a stainless steel pot has plastic handles that are regularly exposed to steam or direct heat from a gas flame, those can certainly degrade and shed particles near your food. The primary concern for microplastics with stainless steel often comes if it's used in conjunction with plastic utensils. For example, scraping a stainless steel pot with a worn plastic spoon. And fifth, let's consider some silicone kitchenware. Silicone has become very popular. Flexible baking mats, spatulas, molds. It's often touted as a safer alternative to plastic, and high-quality food-grade silicone is generally stable, especially at lower temperatures. However, not all silicone is created equal. Lower-quality silicone products, or those not certified as food-grade, might contain fillers or impurities. When these are subjected to very high heat, like in an oven or a hot pan, or if they are old and starting to break down, they too can potentially release particles or chemical compounds. The key here is to look for 100% food-grade silicone and to be mindful of its condition. If your silicone spatula is starting to feel sticky, or if it's tearing or crumbling, it's time to replace it. It's a bit like checking the tires on your car. You want to make sure they're in good shape for the journey. So those are 5 common areas of concern. It's a bit to take in, isn't it? But remember, knowledge is the first step. We're not aiming for perfection, just better, more informed choices. If you're finding this information helpful so far, and I truly hope you are, perhaps you could take a moment to give this video a like. It really helps others who might be looking for this kind of guidance to find it. Thank you, dear friends. How do microplastics harm seniors' health? Now that we've identified some common sources, let's talk a little bit about why this matters, especially for us as we age. How do these tiny microplastic particles actually affect our health? Well, first, let's consider how they get into our bodies. The most direct route, as we've discussed, is through ingestion, eating food that has been contaminated with microplastics shed from cookware during preparation. Once inside, these particles, because they are so small, can travel through our digestive system. Our digestive system is an amazing and complex thing, but it's also a primary interface with the outside world. For seniors, the digestive system might already be working a bit differently than it did in younger years. We might experience slower digestion, or be more prone to inflammation. The presence of microplastics could potentially exacerbate these issues. Some studies, still in early stages, mind you, suggest that these particles could cause physical irritation to the gut lining or potentially contribute to inflammation. Imagine tiny, indigestible bits constantly passing through. It's not hard to see how that could be an irritant over time. Then there's the concern about the chemicals in the plastics. Plastics aren't just pure polymers. They often contain additives, things like plasticizers to make them flexible, stabilizers, colorants. Some of these chemicals are known endocrine disruptors. What does that mean? Well, our endocrine system is responsible for producing and regulating hormones, which control so many vital bodily functions: metabolism, sleep, mood, growth, and more. Endocrine-disrupting chemicals can interfere with this delicate system, potentially mimicking hormones or blocking their action. For seniors, whose hormonal balance might already be shifting due to age, any additional disruption is unwelcome. This could have wide-ranging, subtle effects that are hard to pinpoint, but could contribute to a general decline in well-being. And what about our immune system? Our immune system is our body's defense force. As we age, our immune response can sometimes become less efficient, a state sometimes referred to as immunosenescence. The constant presence of foreign particles like microplastics could potentially trigger low-grade, chronic immune responses or inflammation. While our bodies are designed to deal with foreign invaders, a persistent onslaught might overtax the system or lead to misdirected immune activity. Again, research is ongoing, but it's a plausible area of concern, especially for those of us who want to keep our immune systems as strong as possible. It's important to say that the full long-term effects of microplastic exposure on human health, particularly in seniors, are still being actively researched. Science is a slow, careful process, but the early indications and the general understanding of how foreign particles and chemical contaminants can affect the body suggest that it's wise to be proactive and minimize our exposure where we can. It's a bit like choosing to eat organic food to avoid pesticides. We might not feel the difference immediately, but we're making a choice for our long-term health. This isn't about creating anxiety, but about fostering a sense of gentle vigilance and care for our precious bodies. How to demine seniors' diets. Okay, so we've talked about the what and the why. Now for the most important part, the how. How can we reduce this risk? How can we demine, so to speak, our kitchens and our diets from these microplastics? The good news is that there are many simple, practical steps we can take. It's about making conscious choices. First and foremost, let's talk about choosing safer cookware. One of the best choices you can make is to opt for stainless steel. High-quality stainless steel is durable. It doesn't react with food, it doesn't have any coatings to chip off, and it can handle high heat. Look for food-grade stainless steel, often labeled 18-8 or 18-10, which refers to the percentages of chromium and nickel. These contribute to its corrosion resistance and shine. A good set of stainless steel pots and pans can last a lifetime. My grandmother had a set of stainless steel pots that she used for decades, and they were still in wonderful condition. Another excellent option is cast iron. Cast iron cookware, when properly seasoned, develops a naturally non-stick surface. It holds heat incredibly well, cooks evenly, and can even add a little bit of dietary iron to your food, which can be a bonus for some of us. Yes, it's heavier, and it requires a bit of special care. No harsh soaps keep it dry and seasoned, but many people, myself included, swear by their cast iron skillets. There's a certain satisfaction in cooking with something so timeless and sturdy. Glass and ceramic cookware are also generally safe options, especially for baking dishes, like Pyrex or Corningware, or some stovetop applications if they are designed for it. Just ensure any ceramic coatings are free from lead and cadmium. High-quality ceramic is inert and won't leach anything into your food. Now, what about using these safer materials? It's not just about what you buy, but how you use and care for it. If you do have non-stick pans, try to avoid using them at very high heat. High heat accelerates the breakdown of the coating. Also, never use metal utensils on non-stick surfaces. Opt for wooden or high-quality silicone spatulas instead, and even then, be gentle. If your non-stick pan is scratched or flaking, dear friends, it really is time to retire it. I know it can be hard to part with a familiar tool, but your health is worth more. When it comes to cutting boards, consider switching from plastic to wood or bamboo. Wooden cutting boards have natural antimicrobial properties. Yes, they also get knife scores, but the particles are natural wood fibers, not plastic. They do require a bit more care. Wash them promptly, don't soak them, and oil them occasionally to keep them in good condition. But a good wooden board can be a joy to use. For utensils like spatulas and spoons, wooden or stainless steel options are fantastic. Wooden spoons are classic for a reason. They don't scratch pans, they don't react with acidic foods, and they feel good in the hand. Stainless steel utensils are durable and easy to clean. If you prefer silicone, as I mentioned earlier, ensure it's 100% food-grade silicone and replace it if it shows any signs of wear, stickiness, or damage. A few other general tips. Avoid heating food in plastic containers in the microwave, even if they say microwave safe. That label often just means the container won't melt or warp, not that it won't leach chemicals or microplastics, especially when heated. Transfer food to glass or ceramic dishes before microwaving. Store food in glass or stainless steel containers rather than plastic ones, especially for acidic or oily foods, which can accelerate leaching. And simply be mindful. Look at your kitchen tools. Are they old and worn? Is that plastic spatula melted at the tip? Is that cutting board deeply scarred? Sometimes just taking a moment to really see what we're using is the first step to making a change. It's about making small incremental changes that add up. You don't have to throw everything out tomorrow. Perhaps you start by replacing your most used plastic spatula with a wooden one. Or maybe your next frying pan purchase will be a cast iron or stainless steel one. Every little step helps. So, my dear friends, we've covered quite a bit of ground today, haven't we? We've talked about the hidden issue of microplastics in our kitchens, where they might be coming from, those non-stick pans, plastic utensils, cutting boards, and even some silicone or lower quality metal items. We've touched upon how these tiny particles could potentially impact our health, especially as we navigate our senior years with bodies that deserve the utmost care and respect. But most importantly, we've explored positive, actionable solutions. We've learned that choosing safer cookware materials like stainless steel, cast iron, glass, and wood can make a significant difference. We've discussed the importance of proper use and maintenance, avoiding excessive heat with certain materials, being gentle with surfaces, and knowing when it's time to replace a worn-out tool. The journey to a healthier lifestyle is often made up of many small steps, and becoming aware of potential microplastic exposure from our cookware is one such step. It's not about creating fear or anxiety, but about fostering empowerment through knowledge. It's about making conscious choices that support our well-being, allowing us to continue to enjoy the profound pleasure and nourishment that comes from home-cooked meals, prepared with love, in a safe and healthy kitchen environment. I encourage you to take a gentle inventory of your own kitchen. What small change can you make this week? Perhaps it's deciding to replace that old scratched non-stick pan you've been meaning to get rid of. Or maybe it's investing in a good wooden cutting board, or simply being more mindful about not using plastic utensils in hot, oily, or acidic foods. Remember, every choice towards a healthier kitchen is a choice towards a healthier you. It's an act of self-care, an investment in your vitality and longevity. Our health is our most precious asset, especially in these golden years, and taking steps to protect it, even in seemingly small ways like choosing safer cookware, is a powerful act of love for ourselves. What are your thoughts on this topic? Do you have any favorite non-plastic cookware or tips you'd like to share with our community? Please do leave a comment below. I love hearing from you, and your experiences can inspire and help others too. If you found this discussion valuable, please consider sharing it with friends or family members who might also benefit. And if you haven't already, do subscribe for more conversations about living well and thriving as we age. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for your willingness to learn and grow. Until next time, cook with joy, eat with mindfulness, and take wonderful care of yourselves. Goodbye for now.